Coming up on 5 Minute News. GOP blocks elections bill in Senate showdown. As passengers return to air travel, bad behaviour skyrockets. And Australia fights UN downgrade of Great Barrier Reef health. It's Wednesday, June 23. I'm Anthony Davis. Republican senators voted against debating Democrats' election and voting reform legislation. 60 votes are required to open debate on any measure under the Senate's filibuster rules, and in a 50-50 evenly divided Senate, all 50 Republicans voted against advancing and debating the legislation, providing a dramatic example of Republicans' use of the filibuster to block legislation and forcing hard questions for Democrats over the next steps. The far-reaching proposal, at nearly 900 pages, is viewed by backers as the civil rights issue of the era, legislation that is suddenly of the highest priority after the 2020 election as states impose restrictive new laws that could make it more difficult to vote. Hours before the vote, Senator Joe Manchin, a moderate West Virginia Democrat who's been the party's lone holdout, unified Democrats in support of advancing the bill after others in the party agreed to consider changes he had sought. These reasonable changes have moved the bill forward and to a place worthy of debate on the Senate floor, Manchin said in a statement. Unfortunately, my Republican colleagues refuse to allow debate of this legislation, despite the reasonable changes made to focus the bill on the core issues facing our democracy. Months in the making, Tuesday's showdown over the For the People Act, as it's called, is hardly the end of the road. President Joe Biden has vowed what the White House calls the fight of his presidency over ensuring Americans' access to voting. At stake are not only election rules that make it easier to vote, but also Democrats' ability to confront the limits of bipartisanship and decide whether or not the filibuster rules should change. Air travel can be difficult in the best of times, with cramped planes, flight delays, and short tempers. Throw in a pandemic, and the anxiety level can rise quickly. That has led to confrontations with flight attendants and other unruly behavior, including occasional fights that get captured and replayed endlessly on social media. Airlines have reported about 3,000 cases of disrupted passengers since January 1st, according to a spokesman for the Federal Aviation Administration, which began tracking it this year. About 2,300 of those incidents involve passengers who refuse to obey the federal requirement to wear a face mask. Over the past decade, the FAA investigated about 140 cases a year for possible enforcement actions such as fines. This year, it was nearly 400 by late May. Things have got so bad that the airlines and unions for flight attendants and pilots sent a letter to the U.S. Justice Department on Monday urging that more be done to deter egregious behavior. Trade group Airlines for America sent a separate letter to the Federal Aviation Administration acknowledging that the vast majority of passengers comply with the rules, but unfortunately, we continue to see onboard behavior deteriorating into heinous acts, including assaults, threats, and intimidation of crew members that directly interfere with the performance of crew member duties and jeopardize the safety and security of everyone on board the aircraft. Airlines have stripped some customers of frequent flyer benefits, and in rare cases, pilots have made unplanned landings to remove unruly passengers. Pilots and flight attendants now routinely make pre-flight announcements to remind passengers about federal regulations against interfering with crew. Australia said on Tuesday it will fight against plans to downgrade the Great Barrier Reef's World Heritage status due to climate change, while environmentalists have applauded the UN World Heritage Committee's proposal. The committee said in a draft report on Monday that there's no possible doubt that the network of colourful corals off Australia's northeast coast was facing ascertained danger. The report recommends that the world's most extensive coral reef ecosystem be added to UNESCO's list of World Heritage in Danger, which includes 53 sites, when the World Heritage Committee considers the question in China in July. The listing could shake Australians' confidence in their government's ability to care for the natural wonder and create a role for UNESCO headquarters in devising so-called corrective measures, which would likely include tougher action to reduce Australia's greenhouse gas emissions. Any downgrade of the reef's World Heritage status could reduce tourism revenue that the natural wonder generates for Australia, because fewer tourists will be attracted to a degraded environment and dead coral. Reef cruise operators said the report was wrong and that tourists continued to be awed by the dazzling coral and multicoloured fish. But some tourists said the reef had seemed more colourful during visits decades ago. The network of 2,500 reefs, covering 134,000 square miles, has been World Heritage listed since 1981. But its health is under increasing threat from climate change and rising ocean temperatures. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen Podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.